Good morning. I will be playing a piece by a Jamaican composer who lived until 2012. This is called Papillon, which means butterfly. And just on the with the idea of his, music history not just being the music of, to quote somebody, I'm not even sure who it was, the music of dead white men. Um, that this is a Jamaican composer, and not that I don't love my dead white men too, but this is trying to broaden out the what we look for when we're looking for classical music.
Thank you, Barbara. That put me at ease. I'm a little feeling nervous today, but then I look around the room and I see all these beautiful older friends and wonderful, some new friends, we hope, and appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. And thanks to you on Zoom as well. Summit is a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, and mathematics, and philosophy and personal practices. We aspire to be a religion of love and inclusion. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. Let us quiet our minds and open our hearts as we read the centering thought. Oh, we're not reading the centering thought today. Okay, I'm out of order, sorry. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website, summituuf.org, click on the Visitors button, and fill out your online connection card. Someone will follow up with you. For more than 10,000 years, the Kumeyaay people lived on this land, stretching from the shores of the Pacific Ocean, south to Ensenada, east to the sand dunes of the Colorado River and Imperial Valley, and north to Warner Springs Valley. We acknowledge that this fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land and honor the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay people. Okay. Announcements. We have one announcement about the upcoming auction for this year. And I have to tell you, the theme is no, lips are sealed.
Good morning, friends and former superheroes. We are in the process of gathering business donations. Your favorite business can be our favorite business. We are starting to recruit corporate business donors and anything that they might have to offer. We have a lot of return donors, so if there's something that you appreciated, we would like to reach out to them again. If there's something new, a business that you appreciate that you would like to speak to about donating, we have a letter and a form. And starting next week, we will be having those on the back table for you to take with you. We can also email that to you, but we are in the process of recruiting businesses, so we need to get busy. So start thinking about who you can recruit and who you might like to see that you would like to bid on and share with us. Some of my favorites are people that you have put up for auction, so I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Oh, you've got an announcement? Okay. Take this.
Good morning. Here, I'll get over here. Hi. I just flew in from Chicago last night, where I spent the week with Casey, our pastor Casey, and Eleanor Weed, discussing faith formation. And we're going to be doing some fun things starting September 1st, where we get to an introduction to wonder. So I just want to put that out there in little tease. And Casey says hi to everybody. My arm is still healing. It's all good. There you go.
I guess I should tell you who I am. My name is Shannon Allen, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the auction. Feel free to approach me for any questions you might have, except the theme.
I might consider a bribe. Okay. Sliding? Yeah. So I'm lighting, you're reading. Okay.
Our chalice lighting words are by the Reverend Andrew C. Kennedy. We come to love a church, the traditions, the history, and especially the people who are associated with it. And through these people, young and old, known and unknown, we reach out, both backward into history and forward into the future, to link together the generations in this imperfect but blessed community of memory and hope.
let us quiet our minds and open our hearts as we stand for the You hymn. Please silence your phones and join with us in this holy hour of communion with one another. Thank you. Please be seated. We don't have. Here is the reading. Unitarian Universalist services rarely include readings from the Christian scriptures. We are including one today because it is relevant to some of the history that Reverend Everett will be discussing in the sermon. It is from the 19th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. The setup is that a rich young man has come to Jesus and says that he keeps all the commandments, but wonders whether there is anything else he can do. Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." When the young man heard this word, he went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Truly I tell you, it will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven." When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astounded and said, "Then who can be saved?" That ends the reading. So, please open your gray hymnals or look at the words on the screen for hymn number 396. I know this rose will open. No? Wrong. 293, sorry. Oh, it's up there. Okay. 293, O Star of Truth. This is a new hymn. So Barbara will introduce it and play the melody. Yeah. O star of truth down shining through a wild of cloud and fear, I ask beneath thy guidance what pathway may appear. However long the journey, however hard it be, though I be lone and weary, lead on, I follow thee. I know thy blessed radiance will never done. Okay, it is time for, what's it time for? Joys and concerns. Joys and concerns. Our dear salon cat, Juana Page, is recuperating at home. She's on her way to recovery from her hip surgery. Yay, she finally got it. Yeah. Let's wish her a speedy recovery. Cards and brief calls are appreciated. Pam Williams has a card that we can all sign in the salon after the service. Mama young. Okay. Time for all ages.
I have a joy here, if I could take a minute, please.
Oh, okay.
This is what happened at Everett State, when Fern went on the hospital for the last time, the last 2 days, and on his first or second day, he took the time to talk to her for a half an hour. She spoke about with joy basically of in her last days. I just want to thank you.
Okay. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Albert. You said that in Fern's last days, Reverend Everett counseled her and.
Came to visit.
Oh, okay. It was his first or second day here, and he got called upon to be with Fern, and yeah, and he stepped right in and offered her comfort and joy, and he got the what? Oh, got to know her better. Yeah. Okay. Well, so we are grateful for Reverend Everett's presence in that period, and all throughout COVID, he was with us and helped a lot of people. And he is actually our, what's it called? This summer, he's our summer pastoral care provider this summer while Casey's away. So you can call on him if you need any assistance. I'll just, since I'm up here and I got the mic, my brother, Jeff Starr, is my brother, not my husband. And he's been diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and yesterday was taken to the hospital by ambulance for, turns out he has a collapsed disc, and so he's in a great deal of pain, and I think he's comfortable now on morphine and whatever they're going to give him. So he'll be home soon to recover and start physical therapy and whatever else is required. Anyway, it's kind of, I realize when one sibling starts to go, you know, we start to feel our mortality. So anyway, I'm sure that he would appreciate your thoughts. Okay, that's it. Time for all ages.
Hello, good morning. I realized I didn't introduce myself earlier when I jumped up to say my arm was doing all right. My name is Mary Carter Vale. I'm the Director of Religious Exploration at Summit, which means I work with the children and the families, and we have fun. We wonder together. So I'd like to invite any young people on up. I need some helpers. Anybody who wants to come on up with me? Older people as well, all ages, means all ages. Come on, Barbara. So you guys can sit down. And we've got Wesley and Mason visiting with Lauren. They drove all the way down from Portland. Whoa. Yeah. So did you guys know? Did you know that you have a story? Did you know you have a story? Each of you has a story that's about you. And who knows that story the best? Who knows the story about you? All of us? Yes, your mom or your parent, yes. Sometimes your parent has to fill in some things when you were little and you don't remember. But each of us, who owns your story? Yes, who said you? That's it. Yes, it belongs to you. So when somebody else shares a story about someone, it kind of is like this ring, right? It's sort of flat. It's one-dimensional because they don't know all the aspects. Like if somebody's telling a story about me, they might say, oh, Mary, she's a DRE. Yeah, I'm a DRE. I'm also a mom of three young adults. I also am a mom of Peanut, who you all know who's not going to come. Well, I can't control him with my arm. I also was a pastry chef. I also have been a Unitarian Universalist since I was in middle school. So you see, if we just tell the one story, Mary's a DRE, it's sort of flat, right? So what happens when we tell the full story? We get the full story. See that? All the different pieces of the story, they make a beautiful dance when we get to share our full story. Isn't that cool? We'll get to play with this back in RE, okay? This I bought when I was in Chicago last week. We got to go to something called the Wonder Museum. And they had this at the Wonder Museum. I hope we'll get to go to the Wonder Museum on a field trip this year for all ages. Isn't it cool? So it also feels really nice on your arm. So if anybody wants to try this, can I have a volunteer to help me? Come on up, Oren. All right, so I'm going to share my story with Oren. Can you reach out your hand to me? And watch what happens when I share my story. Here, let's see if we can do this. We can get it going. Go up and down. See? Isn't that cool? How you could share your story? And then you can pass your story on to somebody else. So that's how storytelling works. When it's well done and you get to tell your own, you get to include all the pieces. So just twist them opposite directions and it'll go back to a circle. There you go. Or you can just hold on to that. Just don't break it on me, okay? Because we want to play with it. So let us do our children's affirmation song. And we're going to go back. We're going to be playing with stomp rockets in the parking lot. So I request when you start pulling, when you're ready to leave, just check the parking lot for children today, okay? So we're going to be out there practicing pressure games. All right, let's do our you hymn. Barbara's back and ready to go. One each. Let's head back. Two. We help each other learn. Is true. Bible. Oh, I forgot my phone in my book.
Okay, we are ready for hymn number 396. This is one we are familiar with, but the words are found in the gray hymnal, number 396. If you want to stretch your legs, you can.
Twice.
Or okay, sing it through twice. Please rise if you feel like it, and if you don't, that's okay too. Reverend Everett. Please welcome Reverend Everett.
Please join me now in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, God of many names, We gather here in your presence in a time of great change, in an ever-changing and unstable political climate that can create both hope and anxiety, on a warming earth with fires already in California, and with all of our other more local, more personal concerns. But, Spirit of life, as we gather here now in the community that calls forth your presence, we have a chance in our busy weeks to feel a moment of calmness, of quiet. For those who can hear my words in this room, online, in the future, please take some calming breaths. And if you are comfortable doing so, close your eyes or focus gently in the middle distance. Breathe. Feel the love of this community surrounding you, supporting you. Know that this love is with you always. Let us pause in silence to be aware of this love and aware of the present moment. Blessed be, and amen. Who lives? Who dies? Who tells your story? That is the title of the closing number of the hit musical Hamilton, which opened just over 9 years ago. With a hip-hop score and a Broadway cast that was primarily people of color, it tells a version of the story of the founding of the United States, focusing primarily on Alexander Hamilton and his allies, enemies, and loves. But throughout the musical, there is a recurring thread. What stories get included in our history? What do we know about them? And who tells them? Early in the first act, Hamilton and his revolutionary friends sing, "I may not live to see our glory, but I will gladly join the fight. And when our children tell our story, they'll tell the story of tonight." Near the end of the first act, George Washington sings an echo of this. "Let me tell you what I'd wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?" And at the close of the musical, Washington's words, "Who lives, who dies, who tells your story," his words become the title and the refrain of a song in which Hamilton's widow Eliza tells how she spent the rest of her life establishing her husband's legacy. I've been thinking a lot recently about history, about which stories get told. Since November, I've been working part-time for the Unitarian Universalist Association. My job is mostly to maintain and grow the Worship Web, which is an online collection of readings and prayers and rituals and poetry. But my supervisor, the Reverend Erica Hewitt, sometimes finds other projects for me to work on as well. And recently, she asked whether I could help with a project to find out more information about the lives of some 19th century Black Unitarians and Universalists. In the course of doing this research, I have learned a lot, and it's made me think about the questions raised by the musical Hamilton. Who tells your story? And why are some stories told and retold and others not? What determines whether some story or some person becomes well known? Now, this is a question that people have been asking for a long time. The 14th century English poet Geoffrey Chaucer, who was mostly known for writing the Canterbury Tales, also wrote an unfinished story called The House of Fame. In this story, Chaucer describes a dream in which an eagle carries him to a special location, equally distant from the earth and the sea and the skies, where every conversation, every shout, every whisper can be heard. And this is where the House of Fame stands. The house is a giant structure built on a mountain of ice. And many names of famous people are carved into the ice of the mountain. Some of these names are exposed to the sunlight, and their letters are slowly melting away. As the names melt away, so are the people forgotten. But other names are protected from the sun by the shadow of the House of Fame, and they remain as clearly legible as when they were first carved. Inside the House of Fame, there are thousands upon thousands of musicians and storytellers and historians, and sitting on a ruby throne high above them is the goddess of fame herself. Chaucer describes how, in this dream, people come to petition the goddess, some asking for fame and some asking to be forgotten. But the goddess is capricious, and she ignores people's requests, and instead, by her own choice, she grants some people fame, and some people infamy, and some obscurity. This dream of Chaucer's is one explanation of why it is that some people and events are remembered and others are not. It is simply the will of the goddess of fame. Will your name be carved on the sunny side of the mountain and slowly melt away? Or will it be protected by the shadow of the House of Fame and be remembered forever? The goddess decides. But all this is a dream. In the real world, there are other forces at work. Some stories are ignored because of the biases of the storyteller or of society, and some stories never get to happen. One person I researched for my job was the Reverend John Bird Wilkins. Has anyone here ever heard of him? We got one lucky winner. Wow, I'm surprised. The initial information that I was given about him was this. John Bird Wilkins had been a Baptist minister. In 1887, he founded a liberal church in Chicago called the People's Temple, and he affiliated with the Unitarians. But he left Chicago in 1888 and made his living afterwards as an inventor. That was the little story I had. Not much to go on, and with that summary, maybe it's not surprising that not many people have heard about him, that his story is not told so much. The church he tried to found did not last, and he left town, and he left the ministry. Why should we know more about his story? Because his story is more complicated than that. I found information about him from several sources. In 2010, Bird Wilkins's great-granddaughter, Carolyn Marie Wilkins, published an extensive family history that includes a lot of his story. In 2013, the Reverend Jim Nugent posted a long article about him on the online Dictionary of Unitarian and Universalist Biography. And searches on newspapers.com led to contemporary reports of his activities. So what did I learn? In the mid-1880s, Reverend Bird Wilkins was a Baptist preacher in St. Paul, Minnesota. But in 1887, he was called to be the new pastor of Bethesda Baptist Church in Chicago. So he and his wife and 2 young children moved there. And pretty quickly, he was involved in controversy. He took a public stand against a proposed law to make commerce illegal on Sundays, a law that most ministers approved of. And Reverend Bird Wilkins started serving open communion. That is, he would share communion with non-Baptists. This may not sound like much to you and me as 21st century Unitarian Universalists, but it was a big deal for the conservative Baptists at the time. And in July 1887, he received an anonymous letter which said, "If the Baptists don't put a stop to your having open communion, we will put a stop to it. You can't live in Chicago. If we can't get you one way, we will get you another." And he had other controversial views as well. On August 21st, 1887, he preached a sermon that resulted in a front-page story in the Chicago Tribune the next day. Reverend Bird Wilkins's text that Sunday was our reading this morning, in which Jesus tells a rich young man to give away his possessions and all of his money. Using this text and others, Reverend Bird Wilkins preached that Jesus, the Apostle Peter, and the 4 evangelists were all socialists. "The world will call it socialism," he preached, "but I will call it Christianity." Some in his congregation and many of his fellow Baptist ministers did not appreciate this sermon. But the local Unitarians did. And when conservative Baptists forced Bird Wilkins to leave his congregation, the Unitarians were supportive of his efforts to found a new one, which he called the People's Temple. A newspaper in Wisconsin wrote that this congregation would be, quote, "the first African Unitarian church in the history of the world." This was in September and October of 1887. But in January 1888, Reverend Bird Wilkins was on the front page of the Chicago Tribune once again, because on New Year's Day, while he was preaching at his congregation, unknown attackers set fire to his house. Another anonymous letter came saying, "We believe you are teaching a religion from the devil. We will kill you before you shall hurt us with your new religion. Our white Orthodox churches tell us to run you out of this town, and you have got to go. This is our last warning." In the Chicago Tribune article, Reverend Bird Wilkins says that he and his congregation will never leave. But perhaps after further reflection with his family, he did leave Chicago sometime in 1888, and the People's Temple did not survive his departure. Records of Bird Wilkins are scanty after that, but he seems never to have led a congregation again. So why is Reverend Bird Wilkins' story not more widely known? One reason, of course, is that even though he founded, as the newspaper said, the first African Unitarian church in the history of the world, it did not succeed. But the reason it did not succeed was that it was such a radical idea that its founder was chased out of town with credible threats of death. The reason why Reverend Bird Wilkins is not well known today is not because of the whims of the goddess of fame, but rather because the people of Chicago would not let him do the work that could have led to a new strain of Unitarian culture in the Midwest. And though the local Unitarians were unable or unwilling to help him through this crisis. Who lives? Who dies? Who tells your story? The people telling the stories in Chicago in 1888 did not think that any of this was significant enough to keep in memory. A brief controversy in the newspapers, an article about arson, and then silence, and the warmth of the sunlight melting Reverend Bird Wilkins' name. Interestingly enough, there is a somewhat analogous story that happened more recently. The Reverend Carlton Pearson was a black Pentecostal minister in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with a large following and with impeccable credentials in the evangelical community. But in the 1990s, he had an epiphany. He finally could not believe that a loving God would send anyone to hell. In that moment, he realized that he was a universalist. Heaven is universal. Heaven is for everyone. Pentecostals believe that only people who have been born again can go to heaven, and they view universalism as a heresy and as the work of the devil. Reverend Pearson was denounced by the Joint College of African American Pentecostal Bishops. His colleagues abandoned him, most of his parishioners left, and he had to sell the church where he had previously preached to 6,000 people every Sunday. But he made a connection with the minister of All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, and eventually he and about 200 members of his former congregation started attending All Souls. Reverend Pearson became an affiliate minister there, and he continued to preach at All Souls until his death last year. Now let me be clear, this merger of congregations, of church-going cultures, was not easy and it was not problem-free. And yet, here is another black minister from a conservative religious tradition whose theology became so liberal that he ended up in common cause with Unitarian Universalists. Reverend Bird Wilkins was almost forgotten. What about Reverend Pearson? Well, in 2005, the radio show and podcast This American Life had an episode devoted to his story. UU World Magazine did a feature on him and on how All Souls Tulsa was changed by this influx of former Pentecostals. And in 2018, Netflix premiered a movie about his story called Come Sunday. I watched this a couple of weeks ago. I recommend it. What changed in the century between these two ministers? I think mostly what changed was people's ideas, society's ideas of what is an important story. With different storytellers, the story and the view of history changes. Who lives? Who dies? Who tells your story? Ironically, these words apply to the musical Hamilton itself. Soon after it became a sensation, Hamilton received criticism. It does not squarely face the issue of slavery, and it doesn't address at all the role of Native Americans in the early history of the United States. Critics of the musical say that it misses important parts of history, and they are right. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of the show, agrees with the critics, and he said that there were just too many complexities for him to fit into a 2.5-hour musical. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do with this valid criticism? If we like the musical, do we ignore the criticism? If the criticism is just, do we have to throw the musical away? I think there is a third option. We can recontextualize. We can enjoy the musical for what it is, while at the same time being aware of its failings. It is only one telling of the story, and we can recognize and remember what it leaves out. Leslie Odom Jr., who played Aaron Burr in the Broadway run of Hamilton, said, "Lin wrote the story that was on his heart to write. I signed on to be a part of the show that I believed in. That was our leg of the race. Now it's your turn. There's no doubt in my mind that some young kid is going to look at Hamilton and write the show that makes what we did look quaint." That, I think, is our job. To see the failings of what has been done and said and told before. To understand that every storyteller and every society brings their biases to the tales. And to see if we can bring new perspectives. We can tell the stories of John Bird Wilkins and others like him. And we can include not just what happened, but also what wasn't allowed to happen. It is our job to retell these stories and to try our best to find more of the truth. But do not think that this is just a matter of the past. We are living in historic times, and the stories that we tell are the first draft of history. May we also do justice to our leg of the race and tell these stories well, so that our descendants will know not only what happened in these times, but also what could have been and what may yet still come to be. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Sorry. I'm just thinking. There's a lot to think about. I really appreciated that. And I took some notes, so when I get home, I'm going to do some of my own research. Thank you for that perspective. Time for the morning offering. Your Sunday morning offering is a gift that provides Summit UU Fellowship the financial resources to help build a better world together. The smallest gift is welcome. For those of you on Zoom, the link can be found in the chat box. Please select the Sunday Plate option to allocate your donation to the appropriate account. Barbara.
Speaking of carving names in the ice, I neglected to give the composer of this next piece, who is a living woman in Minnesota, Libby Larson, wrote, it's 5 pieces called Pentametrics, and I'm playing the first 2.
Thank you, Barbara. Another new hymn for you to try out. It's number in the gray hymnal, number 345, with Joy We Claim the Growing Light. Barbara will introduce it and play a few bars. Yeah. Reclaim the growing light, advancing thought and widening view, the larger freedom, clearer sight, which from the old unfold the new. With wider view come loftier goal, with further light, more good to see, with freedom truer, self-control, with knowledge deeper, reverence be. Let's see.
May the many tellings of our stories give us a deeper understanding of the complexities of our past and of our present. And may this understanding be a blessing for ourselves and for others. Go in peace.
You're going to extinguish the chalice? Yes. I'm going to read the chalice. Extinguishment. Except. Go your ways, knowing not the answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know. Okay, we're singing the closing song, after which we'll have a brief circle song, then a brief whatever, go to the toilet, and then we'll come back and have our discussion, which should be quite interesting today. I don't mind.